Howdy.
Hey,
So it's been a while. Due to health reasons, I've had some weeks off. And today I'm back and I'm here with Steve, also an ex Jehovah's Witness, who wanted to share with us his story growing up a Jehovah's Witness and how it affected him. So thank you for joining me, Steve.
hi
You doing all right?
everybody.
So, thank you for joining me. And I normally ask my guests, how did you come to be a Jehovah's Witness?
Man, so I was born in, right? But it's so much more than that. Were you born in as well?
My mum was raised in it by my really strict grandfather. She left at 16 and then she went back and got baptized when she was 24. I was about 6 or 7 when we started going to the meetings.
Wow. Yeah, I mean it's all that I can ever remember. Do you
Mm.
remember things? Do you remember things other than life outside before you about 6 or 5?
I think I remember celebrating one Christmas, but that could be more because of some photos that we have, but that's about it really.
Yeah, I don't ever remember a life not centered around the
Mm.
Jehovah's Witnesses as a child. I was born in, and my grandfather actually came to Arkansas in, I believe it was the 60s or the 70s, and he helped integrate the Kingdom Hall down here because it was still segregated.
Right.
And he and my grandma, they were here. They helped get everything started, and they had two boys, one of which um, went to Bethel, and he's still there. He's been there for over 50 years.
Wow.
And yeah, and my father, who, as long as I could remember until I was a teenager, he was an elder. So I mean, it's more than just being born in. You're born into a subculture of, and already already they have their own culture, but then you get
Mm-hmm.
down here in the Bible Belt in the South, and there's even more of a subculture to that. So yeah, I mean,
Wow.
just very restrictive, very strict, um, very by the book. You know,
Mm-hmm. So you had those parents that would restrict whatever films you wanted to watch, stuff like that.
definitely, definitely. What you mean? I remember being in my 20s and seeing some cartoons, and like I was like, man, this is so cool, because I had never seen them before. It's not anything I
Yeah.
ever even knew existed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, uh, I remember them not letting me watch that Mickey Mouse Fantasia, and I was like, cool, it sucked anyway. You know what I mean? I just didn't want to watch it. I was one of those kids. I guess I was completely oblivious as a child, just for the simple fact that I was just going so fast. I just wanted to play and learn and experience new things. But looking back now, you can kind of see how, um, in certain regards, they try to navigate you a certain way. As if you're a parent, you're going to do with your child.
Mhm.
But the difference is, so if you have a child and you can see that they're athletically inclined, you're going to push them towards sports. You're going to push them towards athletic endeavors, right? Now, if you grow up a Jehovah's Witness child, it doesn't matter if your predisposition is being good at calculus. It doesn't matter if you're a highly functional athletic person. It doesn't matter what you're going to be predisposed to being good at. They have the
Mhm.
cookie cutter idea that no, the women are going to be what they, not much, and the men are going to be, a Bible thumper, basically. That gets
Yep.
all their answers from a book instead of using their own line of thinking, their own moral code from which to make their decisions.
Mhm. So what was it like for you at school being a witness?
Well, school was school was interesting. School was real interesting because a lot of witnesses, they went to school and they got bullied, they got talked bad to, they had a lot of negative experience. I didn't really have that. I mean, I went through the same things just as much as everybody else did. There might have been a couple picking or people teasing because they saw me on Saturday, but then you get hit in the mouth or you get body slammed on the concrete. You just leave Steven alone, or you just you leave anybody alone, really. So
You stuck up for yourself.
I remember in yeah, I wouldn't even call it sticking up for myself because I probably took it a little bit too far, because I
Right.
got suspended. I got suspended more times than I got fingers on my hand. Yeah, I got suspended in fourth grade for fighting. I got suspended in fifth grade for fighting, sixth grade for fighting, seventh grade for fighting, eighth grade for fighting, ninth grade for fighting, and in the 10th grade, my mother and a group of women that were in field service. See, we had an open campus at the school, so I was off by myself with two young ladies, and we were just enjoying, what I'm saying, each other's company. And my mom drives by the school with the service car group full of other sisters, and they see me because I'm really tall. I'm taller than normal. I'm like 6'5", and so I can't hide. So next thing I know, my mom is like, she's got her heels off. That van door has done come open. She's charging up the hill, and she's like, "You get your ass up and you go to the house. You walk home." And man, I remember being like, "Oh God, like it's going down," And shortly thereafter, they took me out of school. Ended up homeschooling. But man, I got so many school stories. It's ridiculous.
Wow, you sound like a handful at school, that's for sure. Our mum
Well,
was going to take us out of school, but we argued too much in the 6 weeks summer holiday, so she decided to send us back. She was like, "No, I'm not going to deal with it."
I
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to school. There was no motivation to go to school. I didn't know how to get good grades because there was no motivation to get good grades. When you take all of that away from a child, as Jehovah's Witness, you're not encouraged to get the secular education. You're not encouraged, to do any of those things like that. So for some children, and there might be many people that identify with this, but there's many children that just lack the basic motivation to want to get. That's why Jehovah's Witness kids end up homeschooling, because you can't be friends with anybody. So there's no point in developing those relationships. Um, there's plenty of kids that get close to their teachers. Teachers, the kid is smart, the teacher takes an interest in them, and they show them how to fill out, things of that nature. But there's none of that because they're not looking forward to, education outside of high school. So there's just no motivation, and it's sad. And I suffered through the same thing. You take that same child, and if you allow them to play a sport, well, they have to maintain a certain GPA to qualify to play that sport. So now you're putting the onus on them, and you're teaching them responsibility for self, something that many Jehovah's Witnesses don't learn until after they've been an adult for, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, because you're not allowed to
Mm-hmm.
go to college or university. So, if you work hard at school to get those grades, it just stops there because you can't do anything with them. So there's not really much point. So,
So,
yeah.
so here's where it takes kind of a turn for me. So you take away all those basic interests that a child could have. You take away the music program, future business leaders program. You take away FFA. You take away sports. You take everything away from that child. The only thing left for them is the streets. That's it. You know, you're basically creating a problem where a problem didn't exist. So when you take all those programs away, so now I'm left kind of to my own devices. So I'm at the parks, the city parks, playing ball. You run into different things out there when you're a child and you're out there with adults. You got guys drinking, smoking on the sideline, maybe selling a little drugs, you know what I mean, here or there. Things are said. You're just exposed to things that you wouldn't normally be exposed to in, say, a high school environment, where you have an adult supervising and you're with your peers. When you're 14, 15 years old and you're out there running around with 25, 26-year-old grown men, you're, like I said, you're creating a problem where the problem never was.
Yeah.
So I started coming into contact with different things, mainly just marijuana at the very beginning of those teenage years. And if you're a child that grew up a witness, you grow up with a lot of anxiety. You grow up always thinking somebody's watching you, or that, and you're having to live up to this lofty standard that you didn't even create for yourself, nor do you want. So the first time I tried marijuana, I mean, you're talking about a complete escape from anxiety, not an escape from reality, an escape from anxiety. And it's in that moment as a youth that I started to learn that you can treat things like trauma and anxiety. You just have to be careful. You have to be really careful, because let's say many people enjoy marijuana and alcohol at the same time, right? Now you can use marijuana in a medicinal way to try to heal trauma, but there's plenty of people who are alcoholics that use alcohol to try to heal trauma, and as we know, alcohol is not the answer. It's not the answer for any of those, not the answer for depression, anxiety, any of those things.
Yep. But sometimes when things aren't the answer at the time, it kind of helps you. And it's so easy to become dependent on something that makes you feel obviously better at that moment. And then after, you're kind of like, I wish I hadn't have done that. And then a while after that, you're doing it again, because it kind of, I don't know if alcohol numbs the pain, but it kind of just makes you put things aside for a while. Because like when I've had binge drinks, I've just got to the point where I've just been like, do you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to get like really pissed and not just deal with anything around me, just listen to music, and that's all I'm going to do, and not think about anything else. So it's kind of like a distraction.
Did you end up getting reproved or anything as a teenager?
I got plenty of counselling, but I never got officially reproved.
I got privately reproved, publicly reproved, and disfellowshipped all before the age of 17. No, wow. Yeah, 17. Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. So I got baptized at 12, right? And I remember getting adoration and people congratulating, and those types of things can become intoxicating as a child, especially when you're not getting the attention you think you should be getting, in the things that you're good at. They want to give you attention for the things they want you to be good at, not at the things that, like I said, are your natural predisposition. Some people just come out of the womb good at certain things. That's just human nature.
Yeah. I was 13 and I did it because I felt pressured. And my mum and elder stepdad kept telling me, if it's in your heart and you're not baptized and Armageddon comes tomorrow, basically Jehovah's going to kill you. So what is a 13-year-old going to do with that? They're going to get baptized, because they scared me into it. It wasn't because I wanted to. I was scared I was going to die.
Do you remember any of the questions they asked you?
I remember all the answers were already written there in the book, so it was pretty easy. And then I remember
can't recall a single question.
It was, yeah, it was already written there, like in the paragraph, so you just had to put it in your own words. And then I remember before you get baptized, they make you stand up in front of everyone and answer some questions out loud, and you just say yes. I remember that, and I think at that point I was thinking, oh God, I've got to go through with it now. This is it. So yeah. But everyone after is like bringing you cards and presents, and they're all lovey-dovey and well done, and do you know what I mean? And it's just like, to a 13-year-old, it's a big thing. It's like another reason as well to have like a celebration and stuff. So.
Well, I totally remember auxiliary pioneering like the next month and doing that whole thing. And I, I'm one of those people. I can try to have a good time at anything that I'm doing. So I'm not going to say that it was a bad time. I mean, you're 12, you're 13, you get to hang out with your little friends, and you know what I mean. Just there's safety in numbers. You know, if it's just you by yourself, ridicule's hard. But if it's you and your buddy and y'all go to school together, and you might be a Jehovah's Witness at home, but at school, you know what I mean. You might get suspended. You know, you might shove people in the lockers, whatever. You know, those types of things that happens. And they call it living a double life. I called it surviving. You know, because listen, in life sometimes you're the hammer and sometimes you're the nail, and I would rather be the hammer. I mean, that's just my general disposition. I don't want to be messed with. If I could just go through life, you know, and not have to deal with people's shit, that's fine. But life's not that way.
Yeah, I went to school with 5 other witnesses. I think there was 5. But I didn't really hang around with them. I preferred to hang around with worldly friends. So it wasn't until right at the end, before I left comprehensive high school, that I started hanging around with some of the witnesses, because I didn't want to. Like, I didn't want to be known as a witness. I hated it. I was embarrassed. So I thought, if I hung around with this group of Jehovah's Witnesses who were very proud of being Jehovah's Witnesses, then they'd automatically know I was. So I just tried to mention it as little as possible, because I didn't want to talk about it at school. I think you froze.
Hey, you cut out.
Oh. Yeah, you froze. Are you back?
What were we saying about school?
I was saying that I hung around with witnesses at the end, just before I left school, but before that I didn't want to, because I didn't want to talk about being a witness. And I felt that if I hung around with them at school, people would automatically know I was, and I didn't want to talk about it. Like, if people ask me questions, why don't you believe this? I'll be like, I'll go home and find out, come back and tell you tomorrow. And then I used to like try not to talk about it, because I didn't want to talk about it. It was just like, no, embarrassing.
Just go away.
Yeah.
Well, I was the bad witness kid. I was the kid that everyone was told to stay away from, you know. But then when nobody was looking, their kid would be like, I ain't never smoked weed before. Will you smoke with me and keep me in a safe place? Or I've never drank before. Could we drink or something? You know what I mean? Or I used to get a lot. How do I talk to girls? I'm like, I don't know. I was like, don't talk about video games, and you know what I mean. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I got a lot of those. Like, yeah, you know, I can't tell you how many witnesses I got high for the first time.
Wow.
And they would freak out. I'd be like, I'm gonna call my dad and tell on myself. I had a few of them do that, actually, but I talked a few of them down too. Like, man, you're okay. Just breathe. You know what I mean? Breathe through your eyelids. And then what does that mean? And they start calming down. But yeah, there was a lot. And it's funny because I'm older now. I'm 36. I've ran into a few of them, and the stories they tell me now, it's hilarious. I was talking with one, and he was like, "Nah, man, like you made me smoke." I was like, "No, I didn't." He's like, "Nah." He's like, "Nah, you made me." I was like, and he's a rapper now. I was like, "Well, look at you now." I was like, "You're a rapper. You're smoking dank blunts every day. Fuck all that noise. I wasn't mean to you." But yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get invited.
Shout out Joe Morey.
I didn't get invited to very many parties. I think people knew, even though I was an elder's daughter, I didn't get invited to many parties, which I was happy about because I found them boring because there was nothing to do. But I think people saw me as a bit of bad association, so I didn't really get invited to many parties. So I
got asked to leave parties.
I had a group of friends that we used to hang around together and go out drinking and get pissed and do things with worldly lads, and we'd go on holidays together and do stuff, get pissed all 2 weeks and stuff, and we just never, like, I didn't go. People used to go and tell the elders stuff I did, and I'd be like, what do you know? Then I'd kind of admit to some of what they said if somebody else had got proof, kind of thing, but I would never go to the elders and say I've done this and off my own back, never. So there's so much that I did and I never found out about, and they still don't know to this day. So I was
I'm with you on that one. So there's been many times where I got called into the back room, and I would give them a bag, but not the package. You can have a bag from the package, but you can't have the whole package. So I'll be like, yeah, I did that. Like, no, that's not true.
I wish I'd have known about the 2 witness rule back then, because I would have said, show me 2 witnesses that I did it. Because a lot of it was they went off one person and just came and questioned me, expecting me to confess, and I didn't know about the whole 2 witness rule, which I could have used that to my advantage.
Did you ever feel like there was someone who personally just had it out for you, like an elder that just didn't like the cut of your jib, and he was just coming for you?
2 elders' wives. They were twins.
Their wives.
Yeah, there was two elders' wives that were twins. The elders' wives were twins, and yeah, they hated me.
Double cunt.
They were always complaining about me.
Yeah,
but then I did used to go to the meetings dressed goth for the last 2 years I was in, and I really hated that.
Black is a color on the spectrum of colors, just like purple or teal or fuchsia.
Yep.
But yeah, I've had more than a few elders personally make it their mission to railroad me, and I never really understood why. I mean, to be a 30, 40-something year old man, 50-something year old man, and to take pleasure in trying to ruin a young man's life, I can't understand it.
I think some, once they know that you're a little bit not 100% in it and you're doing stuff you're not supposed to, they will go out of their way, kind of as far as they can, to kind of prove what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, they have it in for you because they want to be holy and righteous and be like, right, this person's doing this, we need to make sure. And yeah,
that's crazy wrong, though. Like, I mean, honestly, what type of person? I mean, what type of personality trait is that within somebody that makes them do that? Is it envy? I mean, you just have to ask yourself. Trying to feel righteous?
Trying to be like proper spiritual. Oh, if they're doing wrong, then I'm going to go and tell the elders, or I'm going to make sure people find out, or make sure they're punished. It's like being extra spiritual and extra righteous, isn't it? Like trying to.
Yeah, I had more than a few of those. And one of them actually got my dad removed, because my dad was the presiding overseer for like 2 weeks, and then I think somebody snitched on me for I sold this kid some pot or something, like I was like 17, and his parents found it, or found out or something, and he, gave me up real quick. And then next thing you know, I'm getting disfellowshipped. Well, I got disfellowshipped for, this is what's crazy. I'll give you the details.
Okay.
So when I was 17, messed around. I messed around with a girl from school, and then like the next weekend, I went over to my friend's house, and we all went into the woods and smoked a little pot. And then, like I said, he ended up getting caught, and so I got pulled into the back room, and they're asking me. They were like, "Well, what'd you do with this young lady?" And they're, asking for explicit details, which is ridiculous. Coming to think back now, it's just a really ridiculous thing to ask. And then I remember, I remember telling them like I smoked weed like 3 times. Three or four times my whole life up until that point. You know, and they go on this long tangent about well, how did I smoke it? And I
Right.
said, well, I smoked it with a pipe. They said, well, because you smoked it with a pipe, that makes the concentration higher. So if you smoked it 3 times, that's really like you smoked it 10 times. And that's why we're going to disfellowship you here today, because there's no repentance because you did it 10 times. I'm like, but I didn't do it 10 times.
Wow.
I smoked 3 times, you know. It was just baffling. You know what I mean? Baffling. How
That's
could you come to
crazy.
that conclusion? How could you come to that conclusion? And later in later years, as I became a man and I still kept having to go to committee meetings, I would tell them like, look, I'm not going to meet with anybody that doesn't have any prior experience with drug
Mm.
usage, because how could somebody who's never done any drugs or lived a whole square life, like how can they even begin to understand what can cause some of this drug usage?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are different things that happen to you in life that can trigger things, that can trigger drug use, that can trigger promiscuity in men and women. I mean, there's different things, there's traumas that happen to us as people that can almost dictate our behavior. And it's
Mm.
sad because a lot of those traumas and triggers are brought on by being raised a witness.
Yep. And then you get
So,
punished for how you have to cope with it.
man, and that's I remember sitting down with my mother as a teenager and explaining to her how it just marijuana alleviates anxiety, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so after all that happened when I was 17, I really never stopped smoking from that point to now. I've always kind of enjoyed marijuana. There's been periods where I'd stop, a couple years here, a couple years there, but I look at it as it's just like the vitamins that I take. It's vitamin
Mm.
THC. But
So that was the
yeah,
first time you was disfellowshipped.
yeah, that was the first time. Yeah, and it was crazy because I was 17. My parents, they basically grounded me until I turned 18. They all said they were trying to save me, but really I was just being held prisoner.
Mm.
So like all I did my schoolwork, did my homeschool work. I did my studies, my meeting studies, and I lifted weights. That was the first time in my life I really like picked up weights and stuff, and like
Mm.
started using that as a outlet and coping tool because I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't talk to anybody. And then when I got reinstated, I mean, a lot of my peers were very standoffish. It was like I was a social pariah from that point forward. So they wouldn't really fuck with me in a Jehovah Witness setting. But if they wanted to party, if they wanted to drink, if they wanted to smoke, whatever that, then they would call me then.
Wow.
That's just, yeah. I mean, so I partied with a lot of people. There were ministerial servants that would come through. You know, it was the whole range of the witness spectrum, from the normal rank and file to people that were up and coming. I mean, all kinds of people came through the years to fuck with me on different levels. You know, but none of them were levels that were befitting the standards of what a practicing witness would or should have.
Mm,
Hmm. A lot of hypocrisy, a lot of hypocrisy,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
a lot of double
for sure.
standards, and to believe it or not, a lot of self-loathing. I mean, a lot of people in that religion, they don't like themselves. They're not
Mm.
happy.
Because you're not allowed to be yourself. So you don't like the person that you are. I didn't. That's one of the main reasons I left, is just because I wanted a life. I still kind of believed in most of it when I left. I was 21 and I'd lived a double life for about 2 years. And I was just like, I'm not going to get through Armageddon anyway. And this is what I said to my mum and stepdad before I left. I'm not going to get through Armageddon. So what's the point? I might as well just go out there, live my life, what I've got left. And I thought I'd got about 3-4 years left, because I thought Armageddon was just around the corner. And I'm still here 25 years later.
Well, like, as far as that goes, I don't know what I believe. Okay, so like, I've always felt in my heart, like, we've all done some fucked up, shady stuff in our lives. All of us have. We've all karma is real, whether you want to call it that or not. Right? Bad things happen to good people. All that. Right? But I've always believed that whatever lies for us after we take our last breath, there's good things in store for people who have tried to live a good life. Maybe it's heaven, maybe it's paradise, who knows? But maybe it's eternal slaughter. That doesn't necessarily sound like a bad thing.
You're breaking up. You're frozen.
But who knows? Who really knows?
Hmm. Well, I always joke that I must have been a horrible serial killer in a former life, and that's why I'm getting calmer now. Because I always have shit happen to me.
I mean, shit happens. Shit happens when you're living life. Living life is not for the faint of heart. You know what I'm saying?
Mm. So, what age were you when you got fellowshipped for the second time?
Last year,
Oh, was that your second time last year?
35.
And I'm guessing this time you've decided you're not going back?
Fuck that. Short answer. But no,
Mm.
there's a whole story in between though. You know, so
Okay.
the first time I got disfellowshipped, I was 17 and I got reinstated. I was 19. Okay. And I remember genuinely trying again. I remember doing doing things, you know, that I needed to do, what I was supposed to do, and still kind of on the edge, you know. I remember a buddy of mine who was a ministerial servant, and another buddy of mine who was a ministerial servant. I was living with them. I was 19. One was 24, and the other was 31. And everybody thought it would be a good idea for all of us to live together because I was 19, so they would be the good influence on me. Man, they were fucking crazy. They were crazy. Like they had me like I was their designated driver, you know, so I would be driving them to strip clubs, and they were like, then they found out, you know, about how I grew up or whatever. They were like, man, go into the street and get us weed, and I was just like, man,
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like I don't live here. I don't live here. This is not because I had moved, you know. And they were like, no, you got to getting them some pot. And it had been like 2 years since I smoked, and I fucking passed out. You know what I mean? Like I smoked a little bit, got sleepy, and passed out. And I woke up, and they were tweaking. They were cleaning the house and cooking and all kinds of shit. And they're like, man, that weed didn't do nothing to me. I'm like, man, damn, like, you know. But yeah, and like the whole thing with like going to the strip club, there's way more witnesses that go to the strip club than what you think. You know, I've went to the strip club on my own, just having a good time with buddies and stuff, and turn over my shoulder and see two people from the Kingdom Hall from 100 miles down the road. It's just like, oh, what you
Wow.
doing here, bro? But yeah, so I mean, there's like a whole subculture, you know. But yeah, like I said, so time went by, and I remember like I remember basically with that whole situation with the roommates. I remember basically like everybody kind of finding out. You know what I mean? Because it was just way too much partying. It was way too out of control. It was just too many eyes. So I ended up coming back to my hometown. Now, when I got back here, the situation wasn't very welcoming. Everybody was really mean. Everybody was super judgmental, and I didn't really want to be a witness, but I didn't know how
Mm.
to not be a witness while sustaining my life as an adult. Like paying bills and things of that nature. You know, so I ended up moving into this house and trying methamphetamines for the first time. And man, that was crazy. That was crazy. So like it was amazing at first. It was amazing. Gave you all the energy you wanted, all the charisma you wanted, all the personality you wanted. You could talk your way in and out of things. But being young, it just got out of control. For me, it got out of control. And next thing I know, it was 8 years later. You know what I mean? Still doing dope, still partying. You know what I mean? A long ass 8 years, hard 8 years, an unhappy 8 years, full of drama and fighting and arguing and all kinds of foul shit. Not
Mm.
really. I didn't end up like doing any kind of hard time or really going to jail. I went to jail one time and I wasn't even in there that long, maybe a couple hours, but it was just a lot of family drama, a lot
Mm.
of my social group drama because they knew I was doing drugs, and at that point I couldn't help myself. But I went to rehab one time and it was okay. I really didn't gain anything from it.
Mm.
And then I remember checking myself in when I was kind of at my worst. I remember checking myself in and like being like, okay, I'm gonna stop. I want to stop. And I still didn't quite. It was maybe like a year later, but within that time, I found out that I was gonna have a child. So I had a little bit of motivation to try to stop.
Mm.
And then my child's mother, like, she kind of took her and went and lived her own life and didn't let me see my child. So then I was even more motivated to, do what I had to do to be a part of her life, to establish my rights as a father, and just to see my child. I mean, it was very important to me to see my child, very important. Which I
Mm.
can say that about growing up a witness. They do teach you some family loyalty. You know, um, there is some good qualities. I don't want to just get on here and bash them because I know a lot of my good qualities came inherently from being raised a witness. Like the want to be honest, the want to be a fair person, because they always say you don't want to disrespect Jehovah's name, and some people, they look at that as a bad thing, but it does kind of teach you to be a fair and honest person. I mean, we gotta admit that, right?
But then I think a good parent would teach their kids that anyway, whether they're a witness or not, to be a good,
No doubt,
honest person.
no doubt. But my point is that there are some good qualities that come from. It's not all bad. It's not all bad. They're not all bad people. You know. I think the people that get a little bit of power, they're the ones. But just your regular
Mm.
rank and file, sister so and so, brother so and so, up in his 70s or whatever. Most of those people, they ain't bad people. The kids aren't bad people. You know. But where was
You froze again.
oh, I'm getting text messages and stuff too.
You kept freezing then. So, what made you feel about your life? What was it that made you start to do the drugs? Is there anything in particular that stood out to you that kind of made you sway towards that?
Just being unhappy. Just being unhappy and being forced to live a life that I didn't want to live. And then when you get older, you're especially for me, 'cause I was even in my early 20s, I was still such a kid, man. I was still such a baby, and I didn't quite understand how to be a man yet, you know, and it was hard. It was really hard, but I mean, I'm glad I saw my way through it. But yeah, I mean, the pressures of trying to be a witness, pressures that just naturally fall on you as a man. They expect you to be working the mics and the sound
Mm.
system and giving talks and stuff. And I did that some. I gave a couple Bible readings. I remember being on a assembly part. I remember being on a convention part. Um, Public speaking is not. I mean, I guess I get nervous like every. I don't care.
Mm.
I'll do it if I have to. But I
I
mean,
hated
the
it.
drugs definitely help. Like I said at first, most people hate it. Most people do. I mean, like I was telling you, I'm self-employed, so it does come in handy talking to customers. I got,
Mm.
I guess, good social skills maybe. but uh but yeah, I mean, it just all that pressure that they put on you, it can really take you to some dark places. It took me to some dark places. I mean, like I said, I did meth for a long time. I did cocaine for a long time. I did pills for a long time. And even after I had my daughter, and I fought to be able to see her, and then eventually I ended up getting full custody of her. It was still a struggle. It was still a struggle, and this is where the mushrooms come in. This is where the LSD comes in. This is where taking time to myself and understanding the difference between
Mm-hmm.
abuse and self care, because there is a difference. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
was in a real dark place. The mother of my child, after everything we went through, you know, she ended up passing away, and it was just like the culmination of a long, hard fight, and it was overwhelming to me. And I remember like just being in a really dark place. My thoughts were dark. I just wasn't happy. I was still trying to go to the meetings. I was having a Bible study with an older gentleman who was actually wonderful, and we didn't even study at all. We just had nice conversations.
Mm.
But I just wasn't happy in my personal life. And I remember my cousin came down, and he was like, "Man, you gotta try this. Let's just check out for a week and let's try this." So we dropped acid, and there was a few other people around, and it was lovely. To be honest, it was lovely. I remember I remember everybody else was kind of on their own vibe, you know, and I was just really quiet. I didn't have a lot to say, but after the time was done, and I recounted my thoughts, I realized that I was having like an awesome conversation with myself in my head. I was forgiving people. I was forgiving myself. I was standing up for the child inside of me that nobody stood up for. Like I said, the forgiveness I felt inside is what set me free. You know, I had visions of basically being laughed at and being okay with it. That's one of the things that as a witness, as you know, it can really fuck with your head when they see you out in service, or and then they're laughing at you. I've always hated that, like getting laughed at, getting made fun of. I can take a certain amount, but if you get too close to home, it gets personal. So I remember having visions of being laughed at and me laughing back. Being like, it is funny, it's fucking hilarious, like, let's all have a laugh, you know what I mean? And after we laugh, we can move on from the shit. Like, that's how I felt in my head. I was having these wonderful conversations. Like I said, I forgave people, which I even made a post about it on your Facebook group, the Jehovah's Witnesses Unite, about my former presiding officer. I worked on his house. I painted it. It's all good. We wasn't buddy buddy, but it's all good. You got to forgive people. You got to move on, because the only person that's got to carry that weight is you. It's tough, but that's what my first experience with the LSD helped me. It helped me to let go of all the negative feelings. And then somewhere within that week, I transitioned from the conversation to myself, to then I started realizing, like, look, you have all this life in front of you. You can still make some of this, but this is what you got to do. You got to put in the work. So within that moment, I remember laying the framework, getting in my notebook, writing things down, like, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to drink more water, I'm going to start taking vitamins. You know what I mean? Pork, just different things, you know. And all that came about by a week of self-care. Basically, that's what I call it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna see things. The colors will be vibrant. Everybody's got their own trip. But in my opinion, if you can kind of approach it in a calm and peaceful manner, and have your mind right, have your body right to a certain extent before you do it, it can really be eye-opening and life-changing. It can be, if you allow it to be.
See, I never did acid. Back in the 2000s, a lot of my friends were into doing acid, and I don't know, I just never felt I was ever in the right mind frame, and I always felt like I was paranoid that I was going to have a bad trip, and I never wanted that, so I kept saying no, 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 no. And then when a friend of mine approached me, was it earlier this year, about microdosing, I was like, hallucinogenics, nah. So he says, look, go home, look up, I don't know if I'm saying it right, psilocybin. He says, look it up. It's had like really good health benefits from magic mushrooms. So I did some research on it, and I was like, wow. So I've got acute anxiety, and I get really bad anxiety, especially when traveling. and going to other people's houses. And my friend knew I was going away to stop at my sister's. And normally I'd have to have like a few drinks before I go, drinks on the way, drinks when I get there. And then like even to go shopping, you know, I don't like admitting it, but I'd have to have like a shot of brandy just to like calm my nerves down. So he says to me, think about it, I'll give you enough so you can microdose and see how you go. So I was like, second time he asked me, I said, okay, I'm going to try it. So I took some mushrooms, microdose, a few days before I went. I travelled. I had one drink before I travelled. And when I was there, I hardly drank the amount that I did before. And even when people came round for a family barbecue, I wasn't having to like drink the wine because of my anxiety. And I got to wake up many days without a hangover, which I've never had before. And I was just like, wow, that completely changed the whole aspect of my anxiety and going away from me. It's still there, but it's like gone from this level down to this level of my anxiety. And I was like, this is like life changing. And some of my depression had got into a bad rut. So when I took these few mushrooms he gave me and he didn't have any more, I ordered some truffles online, and I thought I'm going to try like microdosing truffles until I can go and get my own supply properly. And I've been doing that for a few months now. So I do like a few weeks on and a few weeks off, and it's made such a big difference. I went to my sister's again a couple of weeks ago, and again it was the same. I hardly drank anything compared to what I used to. And it's just like, it shocked me like what a difference it's made. And normally I'll come back from my sister's and it would take me 3 days to recuperate from all the anxiety. And I'm not getting that now.
Wow.
And not last time I went to my sister's, the time before, my dad had to get took to hospital halfway home. We was 100 miles away from home. I ended up stuck on the motorway. My dad took off in an ambulance in the dark, waiting for my dad to come and pick me up. And friends were like, waiting for my brother to come and pick me up, sorry. Friends were like, how are you not freaking out? And I was like, I don't know. Because normally I knew my anxiety was high, but not as what it would normally be. And I can only put it down to the fact that because I'd had the truffles on that morning, that it must have kept me a lot calmer than normal. And it's just made a shocking difference. And now it's kind of like, I'm going to carry on doing that because I never wanted to take antidepressants because I didn't want to be kind of zombified and numb my mind. And I feel like with microdosing, it does the opposite. It chills your anxiety, but it also makes you want to do things. It makes you want to be creative. It doesn't like slow your mind down. It does it in a completely different way, and I'm really enjoying it at the moment.
You've got two sides of the scale. You got naturally occurring things that can be used for medicinal purposes, and you got Western medicine, right? And there's a balance somewhere in between, I think, because we need things like Advil, we need antibiotics, things of that nature. But I think that opioids, that's an epidemic. It's easily abused, and you can see now that the government's trying to backtrack here with their laws. And I mean, you got everybody addicted to it, and now you're taking it away. But microdosing the mushrooms can help with that. They can help with that. But people need to try to see past the stigma, because that's really, I think, what it is.
I've never really spoke about it openly. I've mentioned it a bit, but I've never really spoke about it openly until I decided I will come on here and do this with you today, because there still is that stigma attached to it. And then I don't see why there should be, other than like, obviously it's still illegal in the UK to have mushrooms, but you can go and get antidepressants. But if you prefer the natural method, I know they're trying to get, is it the FDI or FDA? They're trying to get those to kind of like approve it, because there's been a lot of research on it, and it's really helped like PTSD, and stuff like that. And there is like proven facts with studies how much that microdosing does help people.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? If it works for you, you should be able to go and get that option.
And two, it's not for everybody. If you have those reservations deep down inside about LSD or mushrooms, then you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it, and that's okay. That's okay. But people need to be aware of the fact that there are options. You know, there's options out there. There's healthy options out there for you. I think we were discussing it earlier about what you put into your stomach. You know, the things you eat, they can affect your mood in different ways. So naturally, anything that you ingest and then digest is going to affect your mood. So it's not for everybody, but I do think that there are some positive mood effects that come from microdosing, like you have with mushrooms. I mean, you're almost using it as like a mood stabilizer, right?
Yeah.
It's not even you're not getting high every day. You're functioning as a person.
You don't feel it. Like my friend says to me before I tried them, he said it's like somebody's come in and cleaned your windows. And I didn't understand what he meant. And then the one day, like, because you have to take them on an empty stomach in the morning. So I got up and I was making my breakfast. I'd already took them. And this was about 2 hours after I'd taken them. And I looked around my room and I was like, wow, everything just looks like really crystal clear. And I was just like, wow, this is what he meant. Like, you don't realise how dirty windows are until someone comes and cleans them, and then everything's a lot clearer. And I stood there and I was like, now I understand what he means. You don't feel that much of a difference. But I used to struggle to get off Facebook in the morning and go and do something like cleaning or stuff I needed to do. I'd set an alarm in my phone saying, get off Facebook for 12 o'clock in the afternoon, to kick me in the arse and say, go and do something. Now I get up, I've took my mushrooms, come to 10 o'clock, I'm like, what can I go and do? And I don't need that alarm. It's like my body just naturally wants to go and do stuff. So you don't trip, you don't feel any side effects, and you don't really realise until you're halfway through doing something, you're like, oh wow, I'm doing this today without even like having to force myself to do it. And then when you've done it for a few days and you look back how much you've accomplished, it's then when you realise, oh wow, I did that. And you just don't realise. So you're not tripping or anything. It's weird. It's really hard to explain. But once you get used to that as well, you don't want to go back to how you was before.
Definitely. And big shout out to my wife, Nicole. She's the one that put in the work to learn about the herbs and the vitamins. And she discovered this vitamin called L-tyrosine, which is basically the equivalent of you know, what is it called? Adderall. You know, but it's a healthier form, you know, and it's a great mood stabilizer. It gives you that little perk. What you were saying just now about finding the motivation to get off social media in the morning to go do something productive, that's something that's going to help you right there. It's called L-tyrosine.
You'll have to send it to me spelled out so I can look it up, because you know I prefer herbs and vitamins and stuff like that to taking like medication. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I'd rather something
I'm right
more
there
natural
with
if it works. Yeah.
I just don't like the way my body processes it. I don't like the way my body processes it. I don't like the way I feel. Like none of that. I remember when I was a teenager and, you know, going through a certain amount of cognitive dissonance, you know what I mean, from being disfellowshipped, and they prescribed me, what was it? It was some sort of antidepressant, and I've never tripped so hard on that antidepressant as I have. I mean, the wallpaper was moving; it was like rotating on the wall, and like I remember the stuff on my headboard was like twisting, and I was like, man. This ain't no shit from the street. Straight from the pharmacy. Like, damn. And I remember chunking the whole bottle away, and like I remember being 19 and crying, just crying. A kid like, I don't even know why I'm crying. It was hilarious.
Mm.
Like thinking back now, but yeah, it was like some sort of antidepressant, you know. And then I remember them giving me Soma. Man, you talking about sleeping for like 14 hours the whole day gone?
Wow.
And I'm an energetic person, you know what I mean? I like to move around, I like to do things, you know, so that wasn't me, you know. But I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about naturally occurring medicinal uses for drugs, you know, like mushrooms, LSD, marijuana, you know, and I prefer to smoke marijuana, but you know, a lot of people ingest it. You know, they eat it. It's great that way too.
I've tripped my ass off when I've had. I had hash. Well, I had hash. I think what did I have? I had hash coffees, hash yogurt, uh, hash cakes, and when my friend made these fairy cakes, I was literally tripping my ass off. But but with weed, when I've had it in the past, because I don't smoke, so if I smoke it, it really hurts my throat, and I wasn't taking it back, so that's why I decided to ingest it. But I don't know, to me, if I'm going to have drugs, I want a drug that's going to make me motivated, where weed just made me felt like I was stuck in my chair and I couldn't move, and that wasn't beneficial to me. So I tried weed a few times and I was just like, nah, this isn't for me. I'll give it a pass.
Well, where I'm from, we'd go out in the park and smoke a fat ass blunt and then play basketball all day and then smoke some more.
Mm. Yeah, it's not my vibe, but I understand why a lot of people do it. Um, I mean, in the past, I did like speed. I did coke once. I used to do half an E because they used to scare me as well because of all the bad news. So I'd do half an E just to like give me energy to dance until like 4 o'clock in the morning. The same with speed. I only ever used to do like half a wrap just to give me a bit of an energy boost. So I don't know. I've always like been very wary of drugs. I've only had dabbles. I've never done like anything major. But no
We
regrets.
cut out there for a second.
You froze.
Um,
I was
yeah.
still jabbering on, but you froze.
No, that's all right. Is it? Do we have any viewers? Is there any questions, or it's
There
just
isn't any
me and
questions
you?
this week. Yeah, it's just me and you. I think because I'm not so regular anymore, I need to kind of like get regular again
Yeah,
and get my viewers back. And a lot of people, I think, because of UK time as well, and it's early for you there as well, isn't it? It's about
that's
lunchtime
like
for
one.
you.
Yeah, it's like 1 p.m.
It's like it's just gone 7 o'clock on the night for me. So I think sometimes time zones can mess people up, and then they'll come back and
Yeah,
watch it at a different time. So I do need to get back into it more regular because I enjoy like getting the awareness out there. And there's so many XJWs with amazing stories that people need to know. And I've had people like message me who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses and say thank you for, you know, bringing these people to our attention. And some people will go on different shows, and then you've got witnesses in the comments going, "This isn't true. They're lying." But the more of us that do it and get the word out there, then they're going to realise, hold on, this is a regular thing. This isn't just one or two apostates making up stories. This is how it is for a lot of people.
when I was growing up, I really thought it was just me. I really
Mm,
thought it was just me. Not
innit?
that I thought I was like abnormally special or anything. It just seemed like for the area that I was in, for everybody that I was just like the worst one, or like the one that got made an example of, you know. And then I remember like
Mm-hmm.
at 19 discovering the Elder Book online on the internet. You know what I mean? Because we were alive before the internet was invented and shit.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember like fucking with the internet for the first time and like oh shit, and reading it and being like, man, it really is bullshit. But being like this is our life, our life, because like I said, you're still young. You don't really know what you want to do yet. So it's so funny looking back now.
See, I left in 96, and I knew before that, because of my stepdad being an elder, that the elder book was a thing, and it used to be always locked in his suitcase in his bedroom. So when I knew they'd be out for a couple of hours, sometimes I'd go in the bedroom and I'd look at the suitcase and be thinking, shall I? Like, open the suitcase and see where the elders book is, and think, if I move that, like, is he going to know I've looked in it? And he used to have like this box of files, and I always used to like want to go and have a look, like, what all these elders' secret files and stuff was. But yeah, I always got scared if I moved something out of place, he's going to know. But I used to go and look on his desk to see if there's any notes or anything that he'd wrote down and not put away. But yeah, I was shocked when I read the elders book a couple of years ago, like, actually what's in it.
Big shout out to the Crusaders for getting them files. Hey, if more of us did that or could do that, man, like, there would have to be some sort of religion reform. There would have to be. I mean, and I guess it would count as their version of Armageddon if the government stepped in and made them stop this fellowship. That'd be their version of Armageddon.
I was thinking a few weeks ago, it must make the governing body so nervous to know that they have got elders that are like showing other people and leaking the letters, and they don't know who these elders are. So if you think about how they're feeling, knowing that people that they trust are leaking these letters to the Ex Jehovah's Witness community.
Yeah, that's, and they're out there.
And they're amazing for doing that, because we know the stuff before it gets announced at the congregations, weeks or months before. So I've
said that, and they were like, "How'd you know?" Like, how'd you know that I know? Like, how do you know where I know? How do you know where you just got that off the internet? Like, I did get that off the internet, but it's true.
When I've been in Jehovah's Witness groups on Facebook, I've said, right, you're going to get this announcement in 2 weeks. And like, yeah, whatever, go away, apostate. I'm like, come back and tell me in 2 weeks that this letter hasn't been read at your Kingdom Hall. Right. And obviously none of them come back and say anything, because they're like, okay.
I mean, people tell me things all the time. And I mean, it's you can kind of see something happening within. They've changed their official name to the corporation. Am I correct in saying that? Someone, but
they've got so many different official corporation names. They probably just like switched 15. Between.
Yeah.
Like, I made a whole list of the different corporations they're registered as.
But I mean, the only the only time you see people doing that is to avoid paying out lawsuits and things. I mean, if you just take them out of the equation and show me a list of people, of corporations that do that and why they did it, and you'll just follow the money. Just follow the money. It's that simple.
And why is every Kingdom Hall registered as a charity, separate charity with its own charity number? Why do they need to do that? Because doesn't all the money go to head office anyway? And some of these accounts, you can look them up online and they've got no money in. So why are they doing that? So the Jehovah's Witness organisation as a whole is registered as over 50 charities.
Wow. Why? I mean, the only reason why you would want to be a charity is so you don't pay taxes.
But why list all the Kingdom Halls individually? It doesn't make sense. It makes you wonder whether they've done it so they get to a point where all those billions, they can just split between 50 different charities.
Do you think that's the end game?
I honestly don't know what their end game is, but it's going to be a mess.
Mm. I think it's already started. It's already started. When you have so many, you got the irregular pioneer, you got shout out Marcus Vaughn, you got Martin Riley, Jexit, you got of course you got John Cedars, you got man, you got a ton of people. You got a ton of people, and it's all if you can't find something within that, you got you. It's someone for everyone to relate to in different walks of life. And and for me, it wasn't even about all those videos about disproving doctrine or this and that.
Mm.
It was the amount of times I heard my story over and over and over from multiple different people, men, women. It's just like all of us have this bond and this thing in common, and it's almost like a trauma bond to a certain extent,
Yeah.
and if you look up like trauma bonds, that all that shit is like super toxic. So I mean, it's like it's just it's sad, but we gotta help each other in being kind
Mm-hmm.
to help us find the way out, and that's what I felt like this whole conversation was based on from the very beginning when we got in contact months ago. It was
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about a way to help people free themselves from this anxiety, from this stress,
Mm-hmm.
from this depression of being raised this way, because that's what it is. It was creating trauma, you know,
Yeah.
plain and simple. Being forced into
And
public speaking, I mean not forced, but once that
we were forced.
expectation is laid upon you.
Like I didn't even realise that's where my anxiety started. So the last 2 years I was in, I didn't give any talks because I was due to go on the platform in about 2 minutes. And I handed all my notes to my mum and said, I can't do it, I can't do it. You're going to have to do it. And she was like, what? I was like, you're going to have to do it for me. And I literally went out the back of the Kingdom Hall into the bathroom, feeling sick. I was panicking. So they had to be like, oh, there's been a change of plans. So my mum did the talk. I didn't even know that was anxiety until about 10 years later. I was talking to somebody, and it was a woman who was at the job centre who did an interview with me. And she was like, you need to go and talk to your doctor about anxiety. And I was like, what's anxiety? So I went home, rang my doctor, went and spoke to him. And then looking back, that's when my anxiety started, because I did not want to get up on that platform and give that talk. And it made me feel sick. I wanted to pass out. I was shaking. And I didn't realise that's where it all started, being forced into doing stuff that I didn't want to do. And then I started getting social anxiety because every time I went out to just buy some food, I'd see my mum and she'd walk past me in the street like she didn't even know me. And then I started to think, I don't want to go to the shop just in case I see my mum and she walks past me again. I can't handle this keep happening over and over again. So eventually, like, all this anxiety built up, but it was all related to being a Jehovah's Witness.
It's almost comical because my mom doesn't talk to me, and I still get anxiety. And my wife, she was there for me, because we were going in the store and I seen her. I was like, man, damn. But I mean, like again, I'm so big, I'm so tall, and like, how am I gonna? I just stood there, I was like, man, and like so. But she was right there with me, and she's like, no, it's okay, baby. She was very, very kind, very sweet. But it's just hilarious because even now I still laugh about it. It's like because
Mm.
it's almost like instinct. It's instinct sometimes. And even now when I see being disfellowshipped and then I see someone I know from the Kingdom Hall out in the public and they'll say hi to me and I'll just be like, oh, but hey, it's just that first instinct. You don't. It catches you off guard. You know,
Mm.
but but every time it happens, every time it happens, and one of them does say hi to me, it shows me that people are still kind. There's still good people out there. Not everybody, follows that rule to the letter. And I was that way when I was a Jehovah's Witnesses and I was in and practicing. If I seen someone who's disfellowship, I wouldn't shun them. I would always say hi. That you got to acknowledge people. It's disrespectful, it's wrong, and it's unkind not to acknowledge somebody. That's just wrong.
None of them talk to me, especially when I go and stand next to their cart with a big poster. But yeah.
Dang, so you've like protested with a sign and everything. That's crazy.
Just before COVID happened, we went to the one, and I put up a table. I had this little put up table, put posters up, did flyers, people walking past talking to us, and we were literally about a meter away from their cart. After about an hour and a half, they packed up and left. The second time I did it, as soon as we got there and set up our table, they were on the phone, and the guy happened to be my sister's ex-father-in-law. And I joked and said, oh, they're ringing the elders to see what to do about us here. Within 10 minutes, they packed up, left. My friend who was with me followed them to see where they'd gone, and they went and stood by the train station, the other side of our town. So we packed up, followed them, put our stuff up next to them again, next to them at the new destination. And it took them about 5 minutes that time, and then they packed up and left. and then COVID happened, so there hasn't been any more like carts since then. So I haven't been able to do it since. But yeah.
Yeah, I told one of them, we were talking about something. I said, man, the preaching work is over. And they were like, no, we got the letter writing campaign. I said, oh, okay. Okay.
But the amount of people that are complaining about those, there was a newspaper article where some guy was saying that writing all this stuff about Satan could like really trigger people, and they shouldn't be allowed. So a lot of people are getting really annoyed at the letter writing campaign. So it wouldn't surprise me if certain countries start clamping down on that soon.
Well, isn't it what they did in Russia? That was a pretty big deal, But they like that's going to be Exhibit A.
But I wish more countries would act like that. Like in the Netherlands, they literally went and raided the kingdom halls. The police did, armed police, and got their files, their secret files. Like, why aren't other countries doing that? That's what needs to be done at the end of the day. I mean, take it seriously.
Well, I think all roads point to that at some point, like in our lifetime, possibly. But I think there'll be some sort of religious reform at some point. There needs to be. I mean, isn't that all of our goals for talking about this, and just getting our stories out there and talking to one another, interacting with one another? It's to bring awareness. It's so that hopefully the religion dies with them. Nobody else has to be raised as oppressed that way, because that's what it is. If it's not a cult, it's certainly a high control group. And that was one of the last things I said to my committee on the way out. I said, you guys, you stole my childhood. You're ruining other people's childhood. And if this isn't a cult, it's definitely a high control group, And that's just what it is. There's no other way around it.
Yep.
When you when you have secret manuals, and when you have where women can't be this or women can't be that, I mean, that's it's right there.
Yep. And paedophiles aren't reported to the police. If they took a stand and made like, so clergy penitence wasn't a thing. If it was to do with child abuse, they had to go to the law. If they made that law, you know, if domestic abuse had to be reported, and then if shunning wasn't allowed, it was left up to the members individually. If they got rid of those three things, I wouldn't have such an issue with Jehovah's Witnesses. They could go off and believe their fantasy world as long as they like. But with those three things that are physically and mentally damaging people, I think that's when the government needs to step in and say, look, this is not allowed. Internal courts should be banned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, you know, as long as you're not harming people, believe what you want. But
man,
they are
everything you said is so well put. Yeah, very well put.
And that's why I raise awareness, not because, you know, some of their stupid beliefs. It's because of the harm that it's caused. And I had like victim after victim coming to me and telling me their stories, saying, can you put my story out there for me? So I ended up doing posters with their stories written on. And then I started a page. And then I thought, well, I did a panel. I did a live panel for a while with the glass table. And then I went solo and I thought, well, why don't I pick up what I was doing with those victim stories, but have live chats with people and get their stories out there? So that's why I decided to do this, because awareness needs to be raised.
Right.
And you've helped me do that today.
Right. Yeah.
And anybody else who wants to come tell their story, you know, you don't have to tell everything. You know, just if you've got any stories of domestic violence, abuse, being shunned, just, you know, if you want to come and tell people like how hard it is being shunned, how you was treated in a judicial committee, any of those subjects, feel free to contact me and come on and chat with me about it. As you can see, it's a relaxed chat. You can come on, you can drink, smoke, swear, whatever you need to do, you know, just to get your story out there. Come and let me know. And on that note, thank you very much for joining me, Steve. We've been an hour and 25 minutes now. That's gone really fast.
Right.
So,
yeah, we're gonna have to do this again though. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I can keep going. You know, I can keep going. We can end it now. But
well, you've got
we definitely got to do this again.
So you'll have to come on for a future one and tell us some more of your stories.
Right.
They sound like they'll be entertaining. Tell us more about those naughty ministerial servants. I'm sure people want to know more about them.
Oh man, to hear about them is funny, but to actually have witnessed it and seen it, oh my gosh, it's a whole other story. They're still out there somewhere though.
You're gonna give them a little wave, like.
Yeah.
Right then, shall we fuck off? I'll play my outro, and then if you hang around, I'll come and speak to you backstage.
Cool.
So, bye.
Bye, everybody.